Hey everybody, today we're talking with Marie Dodds of AAA about how to build an emergency kit for your car and your family. If you haven't yet, please do hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, find us on Facebook and Patreon. Your support helps keep this going. All right, let's get after it. Hello everybody, welcome again to Safest Family on the Block, where knowledge is power. I'm your host Jason, and with us today is Marie Dodds of AAA. Hello Marie.
Hello, Jason. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely our pleasure. Now, Marie comes to us after 13 years with AAA, where she has educated the public on traffic safety and on traffic preparedness, as well as worked with the media to bring that message out, and even helped to draft and advise legislature about auto safety and auto enforcement. So I really appreciate you bringing your expertise to the show today to talk about how to build a good car emergency kit.
Yeah, very important. And in fact, AAA did a recent survey and we found that 40% of drivers do not have any emergency provisions in their car. So that's a little concerning because, if you do get stuck, you don't have any provisions in your car to make sure that you and your family stay safe. So we definitely want to get the word out about how important it is to have that emergency kit. And of course, a lot of people think about, okay, yeah, I got to put together an emergency kit if I'm going on a long road trip. If we're packing the family in the car and going to Yellowstone, chances are people think about emergency provisions. But by and large, for folks who are driving every day or maybe a couple times a week, they, for the most part, do not have emergency items in their car. And, as we know, you can get stuck anytime, anywhere. A lot of times folks get stuck relatively close to home for things like weather, if a snowstorm hits unexpectedly, or something that many of us encountered just a few weeks ago, fire evacuations, where, a town goes to a level 2 or level 3 evacuation and all of a sudden everybody's in their car and you're stuck in traffic longer than you expected. So even if you're going on what you think will be a routine trip, it's a really good idea to have that emergency kit in your car.
Excellent. Now, you were kind enough to send me a list of things that I should have in my emergency kit, and I checked that against what was already there and went shopping. And in the tradition of our Loadout episodes, I'd like to just go through those items piece by piece so you can tell our viewers what it's for, why it's important, and especially what people commonly do wrong.
You bet. Let's
You?
go.
Outstanding. So I noticed that there was a part of the list for our emergency kit, even though we call it an emergency kit, I would kind of classify as things that we use to prevent an inconvenience from becoming an emergency. Starting with a good pair of jumper cables.
Yep. Jumper cables are a great thing to have in your vehicle because actually the number one problem we have at AAA from motorists needing help is a dead battery. So if your battery goes dead, of course, you can always call AAA. But if you happen to break down in a city or you're close to other vehicles or other people, you can often jump that vehicle yourself. So this is a really good tool to have with you at all times.
Now, I've noticed that we have jumper cables like this, which are kind of a mid-range, and then we have heavy-duty jumper cables like you might see on a tow truck, and then some smaller, more portable, easier to store cables that I honestly have kind of a purely uninformed emotional response to about, I don't know. Is there a minimum gauge that we should get for our jumper cables?
You do want to read the fine print and make sure that it's, that it has good quality and looks like it's well made. You don't want to buy the cheapest item that you can. On the other hand, you don't need the most heavy duty item either, because you're not going to be one of our AAA techs going out and jumping, hundreds of cars a day. You just need to jump your own vehicle. So it doesn't need to be the best quality in the world. But again, like anything else, you probably don't want to buy the absolute cheapest tool. But that's also not always the case. So it's a really good idea to read the fine print. But if you get by with a lower or medium quality, that's probably okay because you're not going to be using it every day. Let's hope.
Excellent. Is there in terms of the fine print, is there a spec we should look for, or is there a price point that in your experience, get below that, you're looking for trouble?
Not so much. Like all things, there are exceptions to every rule. Chances are, if you buy it at a reputable retailer, or whether online or in person, you can do a little bit of reading before you make that purchase, and that should suffice.
Excellent. Now, in your experience, are there things that people do wrong with their jumper cables? I mean, you can go online, go to YouTube. I'm sure AAA has a video about how to do it right. Is there a common mistake folks are making that you've noticed?
You know, the big mistake is people have no idea how to use them. So that can be a challenge. The other thing is, with some newer vehicles, it can actually be hard to find the battery. You know, once you pop the hood, there can be a plastic cover. So it's not always crystal clear where the heck your battery is. So really good advice with this, and basically most of the items we're going to be talking about today, you have to know how to use them. They don't do any good if you throw them in the car and then you think, okay, I have no idea what end goes where, and where does the black part of the jumper cable go and the red part. So like all things, you want to do a little bit of research, a little bit of education before you head out the door. And as you say, Jason, there are so many resources available online. You can watch a 2-minute video and figure out everything that you need to know about how to use jumper cables. But the number one thing, know how to pop the hood. Believe it or not, there are people who don't know how to do that. And then find out, where is your battery? How do you locate it? And then what are the positive and the negative terminals, and how do you actually hook up those jumper cables? And what, of course, what are the safety implications? What do you need to know? Obviously you don't want to run into trouble or put yourself in danger by trying to use jumper cables.
Excellent. And I'm reasonably confident that 90% of our viewers can go to YouTube right now and search for how to use jumper cables with, insert the model of your car, even the year, and get a relevant, useful video.
Yeah. And, many of us don't like to read our owner's manuals, but most of the time the information is in there as well. There are usually some bits of information, some steps on how to do that. So it's a really good idea. And of course, if you've lost your owner's manual, most of them are also available online as well. So whatever vehicle that you have, chances are you can find that owner's vehicle online. And it's a good idea to double check, okay, what happens if I have a dead battery, need to jump start my car?
Excellent. Especially with some of the hybrid and electric cars that are out there. Apparently you can irreparably hurt your car by using the standard practice. So,
absolutely. So you want to make sure that you can use jumper cables on your vehicle, and how to use them. So again, you have to do your homework before you leave home. It's like getting any new equipment. When you get a new phone or you upgrade your Samsung or your iPhone, there are going to be things that are different that you need to figure out how to use. A lot of us just, do it by trial and error. But with your car, you do want to make sure that you know how to do it correctly, because you don't want to you don't want to put yourself or your passengers in dangers, and you don't want to cause harm to your vehicle.
Now, the next item on the list isn't here on the table because it's an inflated functional spare tire. Most of us have one in our car, but when was the last time we checked to make sure it was itself full of air?
And that's a really good point, Jason. And first of all, something to think of is, does your vehicle even have a spare tire? We are seeing more and more new vehicles coming without a spare tire as standard equipment. And there are a couple reasons for this. Number one is a spare tire obviously has some weight to it. If you eliminate that weight from the car, you can get better mileage and EPA estimates for the vehicle. So some manufacturers are doing it for that. The other is space. There in some vehicles, for example, the brand new 2020 Honda CR-V, one of the most popular small crossovers on the planet. The hybrid version does not have a spare tire because the battery goes in the place where the spare tire used to be housed. So this is something that we see consumers get caught off guard by over and over again. They will call AAA because they'll say, I had a flat tire, I went to change it, and I realized I didn't have one. So you got to make sure that, A, your vehicle has a spare tire, and B, where is it and how do you put it on? And what kind of spare tire is it? Is it one of those little donuts that, if you're in the middle of a long road trip in the middle of nowhere, you're not going to be able to continue on your road trip, the rest of the 200-mile trip with that small donut on your vehicle. It's meant to get you to the nearest auto mechanic. But, again, spare tires, that can create a whole nother can of worm these days because people are caught off guard that their vehicle no longer has them.
It never would have occurred to me to ask because I kind of assumed that it has that and seatbelts.
Yeah.
but apparently that's changing.
Yeah,
Now,
that has
if
changed.
if, if it turns out that your spare tire itself is flat, or you get two flats or whatever, uh, I've also got in mind one of those simple fix-a-flat kits. It's got some of that goop that's destructive to your tire, but it'll get you to the service station. And then one of those air compressors you plug into the car. Something simple, just in case things are worse than a single flat that you can replace on the side of the road.
And those can be handy to have, but you want to keep in mind that the tire repair kits don't work for a lot of tire situations. So if you have a really large hole or you have a blowout, those kits aren't going to do you any good. So, it can maybe give you a little peace of mind to carry that kit, but there are going to be a number of issues that you're not going to be able to fix there by the side of the road with that tire kit, because they just can't fix larger wounds to that tire.
Yeah, definitely a matter of convenience for one situation, and never something used to continue on the road trip, but just a limp towards civilization.
Yeah.
In circumstances. Excellent. Now, continuing on our kind of journey of preventing inconveniences from becoming emergencies, of course, we have our kit with some good tire chains and some a tarp and some work gloves, so that putting them on isn't miserable.
Yeah. Number one thing with tire chains is A, you want to carry the chains. B, know how to put them on. This is another situation like we talked about with booster cables, where you may have the item in your car, but you have no idea how to use it. So again, while our weather is still decent, or if you have the ability to park your vehicle in a garage where you can practice in a nice dry area, make sure that you know how to put those chains on and that they are sized correctly for your vehicle. You don't want to be in the middle of a blizzard trying to put on chains for the first time. So that's something, again, you need to know. You need to know what size chains your vehicle needs, and that's based, of course, on your tire. So you want to get your tire size, look on the tire for the size, and then go and to your retailer or order your chains, but make sure that they will fit your vehicle, and then practice putting them on and off. Again, preferably doing it in a nice dry spot if you can, before you need to actually put those chains on.
Seems like every time I talk to a guest about equipment, whether we're dealing with first aid equipment or your tire chains or a fire extinguisher or a firearm, if you're a person who wants that in your home, one of the things that keeps coming back is it's not enough to have the equipment. You have to train it, not just watch a video once, but practice it until you can do it under stress. And if you've never tried to put the chains on in a cutout on a busy rural road coated with ice with logging trucks going by about 10 feet away, that's the kind of stress we're talking about here.
Exactly. And, when you watch the videos, our AAA techs, for example, and people who put on chains often, they can do it in about 90 seconds. For us, if you've never done it before, you may be wrestling out there for 90 minutes with those chains. So yeah, again, practice makes perfect, or at least makes better. So make sure that you've tried to put them on and off at least a handful of times before you venture out. Make it, so it's fairly comfortable for you.
Excellent. And now we're talking about traction also. You mentioned some abrasive material and a small shovel like kitty litter, which can, if we run off the road, either in the snow or we end up on some mud. Tell us about what the kitty litter or sand or pebbles can do for us.
Yeah, if you find yourself stuck and it's not a seriously bad situation, maybe you've got, one or two tires that are just, feeling like if I could just move the car a couple inches, I could get out. This is where some sand or kitty litter can come in really handy. You just put that down and that tire may get traction that didn't have traction before. Obviously, if your vehicle has rolled over in a ditch, that's not going to be much help. But again, for those minor instances where maybe you somehow slid off the road, you feel like you can get out of there, having traction, that sand or kitty litter may be the difference in getting that vehicle out or not. And again, a shovel can help clear things away. If your tire is deep in some wet ground, and clearing some of that dirt and gravel away might help you get out. So again, those are really handy to have.
And you can get a folding collapsible shovel based on the old entrenching tools for in the $15 to $20 range. And as you can see, it's small, it's compact, it's not going to just dominate the back seat when you're trying to put in groceries.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to get.
And that's the kind of shovel that we recommend. Again, this is not something we hope that you're going to have to use on an everyday basis, but if you need to use it, a small, compact, as you say, foldable shovel, those work great. And again, they don't take up room. You don't want to throw, you know, an 8-foot long shovel in your back seat, you know, or in your trunk. That's certainly not practical, but having a small folding shovel is a great thing to have in that emergency kit.
And circling back to the kitty litter, I put a gallon of kitty litter in a freezer bag, and then I double bagged it because kitty litter gets everywhere, like sand.
Yeah, it does.
Is a gallon enough for most of our purposes, or should I go get a 5-pound bag?
No, I think a gallon should be enough. Again, this is going to be for a situation where you are not in a horrible situation. You know, and we've all been there where it's just like, oh my gosh, if I could get this car to move a couple of inches, I could get it unstuck. That's what these situations are for. So that should be enough. And again, you have to sort of draw the line about reality. You don't want to be carrying around 5 gallons of kitty litter everywhere you go. So if you have enough, that'll give you some decent handfuls. You know, a gallon should suffice.
Okay, great. And then moving on from there to some tools. And again, these can, if you have a little bit of savvy or you're mechanically inclined, you can use tools to turn an inconvenient, keep it an inconvenience rather than it becoming an emergency. And you recommended a basic toolkit or a multi-tool and some rags and some work gloves. It seems to me like what specifically goes in this kit is going to have a lot to do with how new and reliable your car is, how strong you are. I mean, you don't want 100 tools if you only know how to use 3 of them. But what are some basics that most folks should keep on hand?
Yeah, absolutely. So some tools that can come in really handy are things like screwdrivers, pliers, an adjustable wrench, or as you mentioned, a small all-purpose tool. And it's hard to predict what can and will go wrong, but those tools can fix a lot of things. If you are mechanically minded, great. If not, you know, it still can be a really good idea to have those tools because you just never know when you need something. So they can come in really, really handy. Excellent.
And of course, duct tape, roll of duct tape.
Yeah. Can you have any emergency kit without duct tape in it, right? Yeah.
Exactly. You should probably make them out of duct tape.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. What would we do without duct tape? Yeah. Got to have that.
So there are a couple other tools in mind. One, of course, is your ice scraper.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're here in the Pacific Northwest, which we need it to scrape off the frost a couple of times a year. It's usually not too bad, so we can get by with these just fine.
And I'm going to show you my handy dandy one. I'm going to step away here for a second. I am relatively short, so this is my big bad ice scraper, but it's really nice because if you are driving, for example, a pickup and the windshield's high off the ground, you can use this, scrape off the ice, and then brush it off here. So, but the little one that you have also works. And I don't carry this one with me except during the winter months because, again, it's kind of big, but I do take it with me during those winter months because, again, if you're short and you're driving a vehicle that's high off the ground, it can be tough to reach the center of that windshield.
And I imagine that your colleagues up there in Minnesota or Wisconsin or Toronto probably have a larger one with a little mitten on it.
Yeah, you can get all kinds of ice scrapers. You know, the important thing is that you have one. So again, you don't need to invest in a super duper ice scraper, but I like this one for the reasons that I explained, but just having some sort of ability to scrape off that windshield is a great idea.
Excellent. And in a pinch, if you don't have it, I've even used my driver's license, but it's best to have the tool. It's much more convenient, much faster, and your hands get way less cold.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Perfect.
Another tool here is our escape tool.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys, we can use them both to break a window in an emergency and to cut a seatbelt in an emergency. Hopefully we never have to use them, but it's good to have one on it. They're shockingly inexpensive.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, most of them there are a lot of them you can find for under $10, a lot of them under $20. The one important point to keep in mind with those emergency escape tools is you have to know what kind of window your vehicle has. So this is a survey that AAA did last summer. And we looked at laminated glass and tempered glass. And there are a growing number of vehicles that are putting laminated glass all the way around. That glass cannot be broken by one of those escape tools. And the reason that manufacturers are doing that is that glass will survive better in the event of a serious crash. The bad news is that you can't get out of your vehicle with one of those escape tools. So sometimes the side windows will be tempered glass, and you can puncture those with one of those tools. But this is another one of those instances where you need to check your owner's manual or check with the manufacturer and find out what kind of glass does my vehicle have, because you don't want to be carrying one of those tools and then not be able to escape. The other thing that we find with these tools are, if you have it in a bag in your trunk, this is a tool that you need to be able to reach. And, believe it or not, we have accidental instances where vehicles end up in the water. Maybe you're parking on a boat ramp and you forget to put your brake on and the car goes in. I mean, there's a number of different scenarios. So that's one of those tools that you do need to have handy where you can grab it. If you're the driver, you want to have that tool where you can reach it and grab it. Certainly no further than the glove box, because if your car is going underwater, you've got seconds to get out.
That's probably true of the next tool on the list, which is a fire extinguisher.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody feels the need to carry them, but having a good, you can get these portable ones that are made for the car. They're BC instead of ABC, which is, they deal with the kind of fires you're most likely to encounter in your vehicle. This one retails for $24 and is small enough to fit conveniently within reach of the driver.
Yep. And again, let's hope you never have to use it, but if you do, it's nice to have that. The other thing, though, to keep in mind is that if you smell smoke or if you think your vehicle is on fire, you don't want to mess around with trying to put that fire out. You want to get out of the vehicle as quickly as you can.
Absolutely. There's not a whole lot of sense in staying there until you know what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So moving on from tools, let's talk about light for a second. Light's usually important. My car first aid kit, which we'll talk about in a minute, I keep a simple tactical flashlight in there, and then a set of road flares or those really cool new little LED flare sort of things. The new electrical flares, which are really neat, is another option. And what is the purpose of these particularly?
If you break down on the roadside, it's really nice to warn other vehicles that you are broken down. So that's the purpose of having flares or some sort of emergency device, warning device. And there are a lot of them now, some high tech, some low tech. There are still the old fashioned ones that you light and then they burn. But you basically just want to alert other vehicles, hey, I am stranded and I'm up on the road ahead. So you want to put it behind your vehicle and also in front of your vehicle so that people know when they've passed you as well. But it's just a way to notify other drivers that, hey, I'm stranded in my vehicle and I'm on the side of the road here. Don't hit me.
You can also get those reflective triangles. Is there a difference between the use and application of the triangles versus the flares? Should I use both? Should I use either? What's the best plan?
Using either is just fine. Whatever you feel more comfortable with. A lot of people would prefer not to have to carry matches or some sort of lighting device in the vehicle. So they'd rather use some of the reflector materials or some of the ones that you turn on that have a flashing beacon, that sort of thing. So it's completely up to you. Just make sure that you have them.
Okay. And on the topic of light, this is recommended by a friend of mine, but you can get 100 glow sticks with a little lanyard for less than $20. And the idea of, if you end up in a car accident and you have children, have the kid break it, put a lanyard on it, whip them around their necks so that they're plainly visible to everybody.
Yeah.
While you're dealing with that.
And that's a great idea. And it's certainly not necessarily something that you must have in your emergency kit, but it can't hurt if you have room for it. And, the other fun thing about those is if you are stranded, for example, in your car isn't broken down, but let's say you're just stranded on a snowy road and traffic, nobody's moving, you're stuck in traffic, you can get those out for the kids to play with. There's another thing as well. I'll buy you a few minutes of peace. But that's a really good idea. Anything that you can have, whether it's reflective vests or some sort of reflective tag or glow stick, anything that can alert other drivers, other people that you are out there is good, especially as we're heading into the winter months. Days are getting shorter, and there's going to be a lot of dark hours. So anything that helps you and your passengers be seen, that's a plus.
Outstanding. And now we were nerding out about this thing here just before we hit the record button. Can you tell us about this device and why pretty much any car should have it?
Yeah, you bet. I've got another similar one here, but these things are great. This is a multifunction tool. It works as a hand crank flashlight and phone charger. So you can crank it up and then you can turn on the flashlight. So that's a great thing to have. You can also, it also has a USB port so you can charge your phone. Many of us, of course, have flashlights on our phones. I use my flashlight on my phone all the time, but if I'm stuck out somewhere, I don't want to be draining my phone's battery so that I can use the flashlight. So these tools are great to have. Yours, like mine, also has a radio. So if you're in a situation where you're stuck in a snowstorm or a fire evacuation, you can also tune in for the latest news. But this is a great little extra to have. Again, it's not a super duper necessity, but they sure are convenient to have. And I just like the ability that you've got a flashlight and a hand cranked phone charger as well.
And they're, again, these are less than $50, often less than $50 for decent quality. The model I have even has a solar panel on the top, which may be of limited use if you're mobile in a car, but even just for camping.
Yeah.
So
these are great tools, and they come in just so handy. Again, you don't need to be stuck to be able to take advantage of these. So a fun little tool, and again, with the holidays coming up, great gift.
And of course, this blue pack here is the spare set of batteries. This is hand crank, but it also has a battery pack, and just having a full set of batteries for every electronic device you're going to be relying on to keep you safe is a good standard practice.
Yeah, it really is. Especially anything that uses batteries, if it's cold weather or extremely hot weather, those batteries might drain faster than they would if you were using them at home. So bringing a spare set of batteries for every electronic device you have is a great idea, especially things like flashlights, because again, if you are stuck overnight somewhere, that flashlight's going to be on most of the time. You want to be able to make sure that you can have light when those batteries burn out and have that extra set of batteries and plug them in.
And then you mentioned a first aid kit, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different versions of first aid kits out there. And in fact, what's the word I'm looking for here? Consistent viewers will remember our episode with Steve Mullins where he talked us through building a family first aid kit. He also gave us a list for a good car first aid kit, and we will have a video soon about how to put this thing here together for less than $30. It's got everything from a boo-boo kit up to fairly serious trauma things to keep someone alive while you're rushing them to the hospital.
Yeah, that's great advice. And, you want the basics in there. Ask yourself, okay, if I fall and scrape my knee, can I take care of that? Can I deal with more serious injuries? So you want to make sure that you have the basics in there.
Excellent. Now moving on, we're to comfort and warmth, which we're just finishing up the summer, so we weren't as concerned about it, but it's again going to be more relevant to us. I mean, I don't know when y'all are watching this, but we're recording this in early October. And one of the things we put on was blankets. I'm a big fan of these Mylar blankets. They're portable. They're MacGyver level, convertible. Sounds like you're a believer in the Mylar blanket as well.
Yeah, but we can geek out about those too. They're great because they work really well. They're small, they're portable, and it isn't like you need to pack around a huge down quilt, in your vehicle. When you're putting together your emergency kit, ease of use and convenience is so important. And, we don't want to have an emergency kit that is, that takes up the entire back seat or the entire trunk. So those types of blankets are great, and they work well. They're not very expensive, and they just check all the boxes.
And specifically for cars, you can use because they're highly reflective. If you're stuck in the heat, you can put the whole thing over your car, and it's reflective, and it turns your car into a cool, sheltered cave kind of area. And if you're stuck in the winter, you can just put it over your body and maintain body heat. They're extremely flexible, extremely inexpensive, and they take up just a very small amount of space.
Exactly. And they can also double as a tarp. We've talked about this earlier, if you forgot to throw a tarp in the car and you got to go put on chains or wrestle to fix that flat tire, you can use that as your tarp as well. And they clean easily. You just wipe them off and they're good to go.
NASA brought us a lot of cool stuff. This is one of my favorites.
Yeah, me too. I'm right there with you.
And then let's talk about clothing a little bit. One of the situations that a lot of people have at least one story of is they went to dinner or on a date or to a formal event, and then they had the flat tire, and now you're walking 10 miles in your dress shoes or your stilettos, which is
Not
no
fun.
fun at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Not
you're
fun.
or you went to an event in shorts and a t-shirt and the temperature dropped and now you're stuck in the snow without a jacket. So you recommended having hats and gloves and jackets for everybody. I happen to just have this lying around and got them all stuffed in here. I'm not sure how I did, so I'm a little afraid to open it right now, lest it explode.
Yeah, it'll pop out.
Yeah, but you can get some smaller ones. Most families have that one box or bag in the coat closet, which is a bunch of hats and gloves that nobody uses anymore, but will be perfectly fine for this kind of emergency.
Yep.
Getting one for our rule was our car fits 4, so 4 sets. One for every possible passenger, not one for every likely passenger.
Yeah, and that's a really good idea. And no matter what season you're traveling in, it can still get really chilly depending on where you are during the summer nights overnight. So it's a really good idea to have jackets, hats, gloves. And the other thing, as you mentioned, is, let's say that you are breaking down after you've been to a more formal event. It's really nice to have that to put on over your outfit as well. If you've got a little black dress on, for example, or you've got a suit, it's nice to be able to take the suit jacket off and put a jacket on over that.
And for jackets, we went with ponchos.
Mm-hmm.
We usually don't leave the house without some kind of jacket, it says, but a good, cheap, portable, again, for space reasons, poncho will keep you dry, which is, out in the Pacific Northwest, at least half the battle in terms of hypothermia and comfort.
Yeah, and again, those are great. They're not meant to be items that are going to last forever and ever, but if you need them, they're small, they're portable, they're inexpensive, and they don't take up a lot of room. You can just put them in your emergency bag and you're good to go. And yes, here in the Pacific Northwest with our weather changing, it can rain in a heartbeat. So it's really good to be prepared with something like that.
I'm going to add a piece of advice I got from Nick Hughes, he wrote How to Be Your Own Bodyguard, and will be a guest on the show later on. But what he also recommended was when you replace your running shoes, take the old ones and put them in your car.
Mm-hmm. Great idea.
They're broken in. You're not going to get a blister wearing these guys. And that way, if you are in your dress shoes or your stilettos, you can immediately shift into something you can walk in or work on a car.
Yeah, that's a really good idea because, the thing about breakdowns is we never know when they're going to happen. And so often we're not prepared. And so having all these items in your car, from those comfortable shoes and practical shoes, to everything that we've talked about, is just so important.
We got a few more things here on the table, but before we get to those, you have been working with AAA for 13 years. Mm-hmm. I'm reasonably certain that most of the people who will be inclined to watch videos on this channel at least know of it. But could you tell us, what is AAA? What do you do for us? How do you help keep us safe?
Yeah, well, I think most folks know that AAA provides roadside assistance. We do that. We respond to millions of calls for help every year, and we provide roadside assistance. We provide things like battery checks. So if you are a AAA member and you think your battery might die any day, most batteries only have a lifespan of 3 to 5 years. You can call us, we'll come out, test your battery. We can replace it for you right there on the spot at a competitive price. So you know us for our roadside assistance. We also offer travel services and insurance services. And I'm talking about home, life, auto insurance. and we can often get you a better price on that than if you're a AAA member than if you go to other companies. So it's always a good idea to check us out. We also are very involved in traffic safety and legislative efforts, everything from impaired driving. We've done groundbreaking research, for example, on how marijuana impacts your ability to drive. We've been on the front lines for teen driver safety, senior driver safety, seat belts, the list goes on and on. So we really try to be the travelers and drivers' most trusted and vocal advocate. And we're there if you need help. If you break down in your vehicle, call AAA. The interesting thing I always like to point out about your AAA membership is it goes with you. So Jason, let's say that you are a AAA member and you're riding in your friend's car who is not a AAA member. I know, hard to believe, right? But let's say your friend's vehicle breaks down, you can call AAA as the member and we will come out and help you. So the membership goes with you. It's also great, for example, during more normal non-pandemic times, if your child, for example, is riding in another parent's car, your child can call AAA if you have him or her on your AAA account. So we just try to be there for you. We're all about serving our members. And as our CEO likes to say, if you want to work at AAA, you got to be somebody who likes people and likes helping people. And that's what we try to do.
I want to underscore one thing you mentioned there, that because it follows the member, not the vehicle. So you're saying that if my teenager, if I'm gonna try that again. Yeah. You're saying that my teenager can be on my membership, and then if they're driving and run off the road with their friends and they're 17, they can get help from AAA right then and there.
Yeah.
No muss, no fuss.
No muss, no fuss. And even if your kid is the only AAA member in that vehicle, yes. So the membership goes with you. And we felt that was really, really important.
That is really good information.
Yeah, yeah. And most people don't realize that about their membership, you know, because every organization that is membership based has a different way of figuring out who's a member and who's not a member and who gets service and who doesn't get service. We just felt that by providing the membership with the person, that was more effective, and we were able to help more people than if we limited it to your vehicle that you own.
Excellent. Now, you also provide some pre-made emergency kits. Could you tell us a little bit about the AAA version of this, its advantages, disadvantages?
Yeah. All right, so we've talked a lot about emergency kits. And of course, AAA has a ready-made kit that you can purchase if you go to any AAA office. And again, we are open now, but we are following all the health and safety guidelines. So you need to wear a mask, social distancing, etc. But you can pick up one of these kits, and there are a lot of the things we've talked about are already in this kit. Now, at AAA, we don't like to be going around hawking stuff. So I always like to say that you can easily put this kit together just like you did, Jason. But there are some folks who say, hey, if I can get a lot of this stuff in a ready-made kit, you know, where do I get it? Sign me up. So we do offer these kits, and they are for sale. And we have a couple of different versions of the kit. There's also another one that is more winter oriented that has some of the ponchos, for example, and the blankets that you've showed. But this kit has some basics in it. For example, the warning flare, the triangle, the booster cables, first aid kit, and some other items as well. All right. But again, you can easily put this together yourself.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Now we have a couple more items from your list, and one of them is food and water, because we don't know how long we might get stuck, whether that's for hours on end during a snow emergency or just some kind of traffic situation. Even I remember coming home from a concert and being in the car for 4 hours.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Or for a longer stay if you get lost. And you recommended water, of course, and whether it's just these guys can fit in the back of the car. The advice is either a half to a gallon of water per person per day. With the kind of situation we'd be in most cars, a half a gallon is probably sufficient. And you can just do the math. How many seats? And we stopped to 3 days in our car, but is there a strong recommendation, which probably varies by region too?
Yeah, it does vary by region. And again, as I like to say, you do have to look at these emergency kits with an eye for practicality. So if we were to put the maximum amount of every tool and everything recommended, we would eat up a lot of space in the car. So just have something, whether it's a couple of water bottles, and if you don't want plastic, use the thermos. Those are also great. But just so that people in your car have something to drink. You ask yourself, if I'm stuck for 24 hours, will I get by on a couple of water bottles? Yeah, that's fine. Am I going to be as hydrated as I should be? Probably not, but it's better than nothing.
And in the same token, we have food supplies, and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of falls into two categories as far as I'm concerned. Beyond the snacks that you usually take as a parent whenever you drive for more than 15 minutes anywhere.
Exactly.
Some non-perishable food, granola bars, protein bars, dried fruit, trail mix, something like that, for the short things where you just don't have a chance to hit the drive-through in the middle of the snowstorm.
Mm-hmm.
And then also we've got some simple portable like rations for if you're stuck for days.
Yeah.
Or if in the case like a fire or hurricane where you have to bug out and didn't have an opportunity to pack food, just a couple extra days of lightweight, small, compact, portable nourishment.
Yeah, those are great to have. And again, they're portable. They are non-perishable for the most part. Obviously, if they're, if you don't want to have food items in your car that are years old, but if you throw an energy bar or some of those prepackaged meals in, they're going to last for a decent amount of time. So again, ask yourself, if I'm stuck for 24 hours, can I get by? And, if we're adults, yeah, chances are we can get by on a bottle of water and a granola bar, and that'll tide us over for 24 hours. Is it perfect? No, but just having something is better than nothing. So again, you don't need to throw the whole kitchen sink. You don't need to throw gourmet meals that'll last your family for 2 weeks if you get stuck. But say, worst case scenario, if we get stuck for a night or several hours or even 2 nights, do I have enough where everybody can survive?
And then from the equally important but different mindset, having a little bit of comfort item in the car too, whether depending on the ages of the people, like two grown adults with a bottle of water and a granola bar between them, it's not going to be pleasant, but you'll make it. But when your kids are 3 or your kids are 11, then a stuffed animal, maybe some small games or a coloring book, something to read, all of these things can make it at least a more pleasant experience.
Absolutely. And as you say, for adults, yeah, it won't be pleasant, but we can suck it up and we'll get through just fine. If you have little ones with you, those comfort items can be so important. So a favorite stuffed animal is great. And we know this from going on any road trip with the little ones, things that you can do to keep them entertained and engaged. That can be very, very helpful, especially if you are stuck somewhere for overnight or longer. It's great to have those items with you. So if you have room, you can throw them in. Again, if you don't have room, it's more about surviving, but having those items can sure make it more bearable for you and your kids.
Let's take a wild turn and talk about storage. The AAA kit comes in a nice zippered pouch that was probably custom made to contain the objects within it.
Mm-hmm.
We have one of those harnesses you can put along the back. We have a minivan, so we have one of those minivan harnesses in the back with lots of pockets. If you have a pickup truck or a car with a trunk, a nice Rubbermaid tub probably does the trick. Do you have any insights to share about what are some of the best ways to store this gear?
Yeah, and again, the ways that you mentioned are all great ways, and we recommend those. And it really depends on the vehicle that you have. And having a kit of some sort, even if you have just minimal items in there, is better than no kit at all. So figure out what you're going to have in your kit and then look at ways to store it. And another item that we found out that works great is having a duffel bag or a couple of backpacks. Those can also be great. If you have a smaller vehicle and you divide it up into multiple backpacks or multiple smaller duffel bags, that can be great as well, because then you don't have this huge item that takes up a lot of space. You can kind of, if you have a few different backpacks, you can throw them in the empty holes that might be in your trunk. So you really have to answer that question based on the vehicle that you have. If you have a little mini something, it's going to be harder to have all that stuff in your vehicle. But again, then you want to take a look at the list and really make sure that you pack the essentials.
And on that topic, I think I identified 3 things on our list that should not go in that trunk storage. And that was our escape tool, because if it's in the trunk, it's not going to do us any good. That should
Exactly.
be within visible and within easy reach of the driver.
Yeah.
And the ice scraper, just because it's going to be a huge pain in the tuchus to go fetch it out of there. I don't know many people who don't keep it in the glove box.
Yeah.
And then also, if you choose to use a fire extinguisher, like you say, our goal is to get out of the car. So putting this anywhere that slows you down, getting out of the car, seems like a mistake to me as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to know what your tool is used for and where it should be. So you're absolutely right. If you have the escape tool in the back in the trunk, it's not going to help you if your car is suddenly submerged unexpectedly. So you need to have all those tools, those ones in particular, at a spot where you can easily grab them. If you're talking about, having water and food, yeah, those can be in the back, because chances are you're not going to need those instantly.
And if, for most parents, there's already
immediate you already have
access
stuff in the vehicle.
Snacks in the general cabin anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And for example, we keep this guy in the glove box. This one lives in the center console. And this one just happens to fit in the cup holder in the driver's side door.
Yeah. And newer vehicles have a lot of great pockets and cubbies where you can easily stash some of these smaller items. And that's something to keep in mind, when you're shopping for them. For example, the fire extinguisher. Check out the dimensions and see, is that going to fit in the pocket in the passenger door, the driver's door? And you can find ones that will fit in those little pockets and cubbies. So that's a great thing to do. Again, a little bit of homework can really make this seamless and easy.
Excellent. Then we had one more, because I don't know when folks are watching this, but we recorded this in October of 2020, still in the middle of COVID season. And you specifically called out the need for having a COVID kit with some hand sanitizer, a few extra masks, and some gloves. And this is just a gallon bag lives in the glove box. And I think it's important that this is in addition to your day-to-day carry for that.
Yes.
I keep my mask on the looped over my gear shift, because if I keep it in the house, I will consistently forget it.
Yep.
So I've got one there in the car or whatever, and then we have our hand sanitizer in the wife's purse, and then another one in the glove box or in the center console. But that we should have this in addition to our other stuff, in case we forget it, in case it gets damaged in a crash, what have you.
Exactly. We are dealing with the global pandemic. COVID-19 is very much with us. So you do want to make sure that you have all those necessities with you, as you mentioned: a mask, hand sanitizer, wipes, gloves. Let's say that you are unexpectedly staying in a hotel, for example, that your car breaks down and you had your tow to the auto repair shop, and you have to spend the night in a hotel. You want to have everything that you need there. So extra wipes to wipe down doorknobs and commonly touched surfaces, extra masks, gloves if you like them. Some people do like to also travel with various sanitizing products. The one thing I say is be sure to read the label. Some are flammable, some give off fumes. So for example, and I'm, exaggerating a little bit here, but you don't want to spray down the car with bleach and then, have your clothes stained and have the horrible bleach smell, in your vehicle. So you want to make sure that you know how those products work, and if they are flammable or if they pose any kind of risks to folks, especially those who might have breathing issues.
And again, that gets back to research and consideration: what kind of car you have, who's likely to be in the car, so you know about those medical interactions and sensitivities that might be part of your usual visitors in your car.
Yeah. And the other thing with these items is, we're starting to see some of these items return to store shelves, but they're still not widely available everywhere. So if you are in a more rural area and you've run out of wipes or Lysol spray, you might not be able to find them. So it's a really good idea to carry some of these things with you. Same things with hand sanitizer and masks. Again, I'm starting to just anecdotally see them more and more available on store shelves, but there was a long time there where you couldn't get hand sanitizer, and it was really, really tough to find masks. And again, it's with masks, it's really, use the face covering that works for you. You don't have to have surgical quality masks, but make sure that you have a face covering that works well for you and your kids.
And an additional set in the car, plus whatever your day-to-day carrying would be.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you never know if you lose a mask or, it could happen. I've had it before where I've done my shopping. I've gotten back to my car. I took off my mask and it fell down on the pavement. I went back and was able to find it, but that was a mask that I couldn't wear because it was dirty. So I was really glad I had a couple of extra masks, and I do carry them with me in the car. And, again, I do forget them sometimes, and I don't want to have to not be able to run my errands or do the business I needed to do because I was stupid and forgot my mask.
Yes, I've been there my own self. Like I say, I keep one of them in the car because I keep forgetting my mask.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
All right. Well, Marie, thank you so much for bringing your experience and knowledge to us today. I'm sure our viewers are really going to appreciate this Loadout episode. Thank you so much for coming on today.
My pleasure. And I expect everybody to have that emergency kit in the car. You don't have to have every single item, but have something. The bottom line is ask yourself the question, if I get stuck for several hours or overnight or even longer, do I have enough provisions where everyone can get by? We might not be living in a life of luxury or have every amenity that we would need and want, but can we survive and get through this?
Thanks for watching today. If you loved what you saw, please do hit the subscribe button and the like button. Tell your friends. Click on those links above to go to the full version of this video or another of our shorter synopses. Thanks again. Hope to see you soon.